Hi, everybody. I'll pass on the music. I'm out in the living room. My daughter still isn't feeling well. Went to bed really early. So yeah. We even took a COVID test because of her fevers, and there was a faint line below the C, which means negative, but I know the home tests aren't always accurate. So yeah. So it looks like I'm live. I thought my little snowmen and my sleds and the snowy scenes, since we don't have any snow here, and my serenity prayer up on the left there would be kind of a nice thing to just kind of look at. So hopefully the iPad won't fall down. So I'm definitely live. Okay. So I'm going to read the disclaimer, and hopefully the sound is good. Let me check the sound. All right, sound's all the way up now. Yeah, so the South is bracing for, as the weather channels are saying, brutally cold, snowy weather. And we were wishing we had snow here, or I was. So, reading this book, a New York Times bestseller called Drinking, a Love Story by Carolyn Knapp, K-N-A-P-P. And I'm a little bit a ways from, my iPad. And if I put my glasses on, I can't really see the book. And if I put my glasses on, I can see some of the comments when they come in. So I'll put my glasses on now and then, but I'm sitting on the couch. So if I miss your hellos, when you come in or anything, don't feel offended. So we're on chapter 8, addiction, and we did the National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependence questionnaire, the yes or no questions. And as most of you know, I did stop drinking in 2011, but I answered yes to a lot of those questions. So this is Carolyn Knapp talking, changing the names, and this is her true story. At this point, she's been sober a year and a half to 2 years, in her 30s back then, and this book was written in 1996. And she will talk about some of her alcoholic experiences and stories of her past. I get pangs of horror sometimes when I think about what was happening to my brain back then, how all that alcohol was wending its way to my bloodstream and vital organs, how liquor might have been throwing things out of whack from the very start. Normal drinkers seem to have a kind of built-in alarm system that tells them at a certain point to stop drinking. They ingest alcohol that passes through the walls and small intestine and into the bloodstream, then moves through cell membranes and mixes in the entire water content of the body. Brain, liver, heart, pancreas, lungs, kidneys, and every other organ and tissue system are affected. Alcohol basically depresses the central nervous system. Although at low doses, it gives the drinker a revved up, pleasant feeling. At first, alcohol increases blood flow, accelerates the heart rate, and stimulates brain cells, all of which makes the drinker feel giddy, talkative, energetic. At higher doses, the depressive effects are felt. The drinker gets uncoordinated, vision may be impaired, reflexes are delayed, speech gets slurred. The normal drinker usually calls it quits well before that point. That elusive internal alarm goes off and says no more. Some Asians, who typically have one of the lowest rates of alcoholism in the world, experience what's called the Asian flush syndrome. Too much liquor makes them warm and queasy, causes the heart rate to rise and the blood pressure to drop. The feeling is unpleasant, and the drinker's natural self-protective tendency is to abstain. Not mine. No one really knows precisely why some people become alcoholic, while others don't, but scientists are closing in on some of the causes. Alcoholism is probably an inherited phenomenon. Research over the last 30 years has begun to confirm that alcoholism runs in families, suggesting that although environmental factors may contribute to the development of the disease, most alcoholics probably have a genetic predisposition to it as well. Addiction to alcohol is also a neurological phenomenon, the result of a complex set of molecular alterations that take place in the brain when it's excessively and repeatedly exposed to the drug. The science of addiction is complicated, but the basic idea is fairly straightforward. Alcohol appears to wreak havoc on the brain's natural systems of craving and reward, compromising the functioning of the various neurotransmitters and proteins that create feelings of well-being. Essentially, drinking artificially activates the brain's reward system. You have a martini or two, and the alcohol acts on the part of the brain's circuitry that makes you feel good, increasing the release of the neurotransmitter dopamine, which is central to feelings of pleasure and reward. Over time, and given the right combination of vulnerability to alcoholism and actual alcohol abuse, the brain develops what are known as compensatory adaptations to all that artificial revving up in an effort to bring its own chemistry back into its natural equilibrium. It works overtime to decrease dopamine release, ultimately leaving those same pleasure/reward circuits depleted. A vicious cycle ensues. By drinking too much, you basically diminish your brain's ability to manufacture feelings of well-being and calm on its own, and you come to depend increasingly on the artificial stimulus, alcohol, to produce those feelings. This is why an alcoholic may wake up after a night of heavy drinking, struggling with two competing motivations: the logical thinking part of the brain, taking note of the hangover and the feelings of remorse, kicks in with determination and resolve. Drinking too much is bad. I'm going to cut down. I mean it. But for the far less rational part, this far more mysterious, primitive, and powerful circuitry of pleasure and need speaks in a more urgent, compelling voice. No, it says, I feel bad, and I need a very specific thing, alcohol, in order to feel good again. Seen in this light, alcoholism may be a disease in the purest sense, a physiological state producing a sense of overwhelming dis-ease. Dis-ease. The idea that alcoholism is a physical illness was first formally advanced in this country, in 1960 with the publication of Elvin Morton Jelinek's The Disease Concept of Alcoholism. Today, Jelinek's thinking is standard in medical circles, Although the disease theory remains controversial among some doctors and researchers who believe there isn't sufficient proof of the genetic or biological origin to label it a disease, or who say that the medical model overemphasizes the physiological aspects of alcoholism, thereby ignoring some of its social, cultural, or psychological roots. Those debates aside, the idea that alcoholism is comparable to other illnesses, diabetes, say, is hard for an active alcoholic to internalize. After all, alcoholism doesn't feel like a disease. Okay. Tangible physical symptoms, such as hangovers or tremors in the hands, may appear, but they also pass. They're easy to ignore and they don't tend to impede the drinker in clear or obvious ways. The morning after that drunken phone call with my mother, for example, I may have woken up with a pounding headache, but I continued to function. As I recall, I went sailing that day, and while I felt lousy, a few times the water got choppy, and I thought I might actually heave right there over the side of the boat. Nobody, least of all me, would have seen me as diseased. By 5 o'clock, after a beer and some food, I didn't even feel sick. And for all the advances researchers have made in understanding the disease, I still couldn't have waltzed into a doctor's office that day, taken a blood test, and walked out with a definitive diagnosis. Yes, you are ill, or no, you are not. Most alcoholics, not all, sooner or later have to grapple with the idea that they have a disease. Some people drink in wildly alcoholic ways. The first time they ever taste the stuff, they black out immediately, become violent and out of control, and drinkers like that may have an easier time than some of us understanding that certain powerful physiological forces are at work. That their brains respond to alcohol very differently from those of other drinkers, but those of us who've experienced more gradual and insidious descents into alcoholism have turned the disease concept over and over in our minds to learn over long periods of time to believe and accept it. Back in those years of drinking alone in Providence, and for more than a decade after that, I was nowhere near believing I had an illness, nowhere near even considering it. The body, after all, colludes with the mind, and I was still profoundly affected by the simple matter of physiology, by the simple truth that alcohol made me feel better. Plus, until I got sober, alcoholism seemed more to me like a moral issue than a physical one. This is one of our culture's most basic assumptions about the disease, and one of its most destructive. We figure that drinking too much is a sign of weakness and lack of self restraint, that it's bad, that it can be overcome by will. Child of an analyst that I am, I'd add insight to the list of remedies, and I did, all the way to rehab. Tease out the reasons you drink, the hidden rages and fears, the psychological roots, and the problem will resolve itself. Think your way to mental health. Turn it over to the psychiatric couch. In fact, that's an enormously self-defeating line of thought. When I finally went to the rehab, I was astonished to hear lectures about alcoholism that suggested my drinking really did have physiological roots. I lost control and drank as much as I did on certain nights because very mechanisms was at work. Your brain's ability to manufacture the stuff you need to feel good is compromised. one physician told us during my first week, describing some of the current neurological research. If you abstain, it'll get its balance back. I sat there in awe, thinking for the first time, oh, so it wasn't all me. So it wasn't all a matter of insight and will. Neurology may help explain why traditional talk therapies have been so ineffective in addressing alcohol addiction. You can load up an alcoholic on a diet of insight, but the body tends to speak more directly than the mind. If the brain is screaming for booze, no number of revelations about underlying causes is going to counter that call. Science may also explain why relapse rates are so high. Those neurological reward circuits have extremely long and powerful memories, and once the simple message, alcohol equals pleasure, gets imprinted into the drinker's brain, it may stay there indefinitely, perhaps a lifetime. Environmental cues, the sight of a wine glass, the smell of gin, a walk past a favorite bar, can trigger the wish to drink in a heartbeat, and they often do. I don't think I read the copyright disclaimer, you guys. Or maybe I did. If I did, I've completely forgotten. And that kind of scares me, because it's only been, 10 minutes or so since I started. Copyright disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purpose such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. I think maybe I did read it. I just can't remember. Okay, the course of alcoholism, 4 years after treatment. A January 1980 report by the Rand Corporation in the most extensive and comprehensive study of its kind to date. The study tracked a group of 900 alcoholic men over a period of 4 years. Of those, only 28% remained free of alcohol problems, both at 18 months and at 4 years after entering treatment. Only 15% were in continuous remission for the entire 4 years. Once you've crossed the line into alcoholism, the percentages are not in your favor. There appears to be no safe way to drink again, no way to return to normal, social, controlled drinking. A lot of alcoholics use the cucumber to pickle analogy to describe that phenomenon. A true alcoholic is someone who's turned from a cucumber into a pickle. You can try to stop a cucumber from turning into a pickle, but there's no way you can turn a pickle back into a cucumber. So there I was at age 20, then 21, then 25 and older, literally pickling. Whether the process could have been halted at those earlier stages is a subject of some debate these days. In the past few years, a handful of workshops and self-help groups have cropped up to help drinkers moderate their alcohol intake before it gets out of hand. This so-called moderation movement suggests that the line between problem drinking and alcoholism is clear and challenges AA's philosophy of total abstinence. With proper instruction, the thinking goes, one can be taught to drink responsibly. To me, the idea that a budding alcoholic can learn to drink moderately sounds like a contradiction in terms. I rarely, if ever, drink moderately, even at the beginning. It also seems to ignore the more deeply rooted compulsive pulls a drinker feels toward alcohol. These are needs that don't respond well to the concept of moderation. More important, the modern philosophy seems counter to one of the most essential aspects of alcoholic experience, namely that most of us have already tried and consistently failed to moderate our drinking on our own, experimenting time after time with control. One man I know talks in meetings about returning to drinking after 3 years of continuous sobriety. He decided to conduct a little experiment with controlled drinking and bought a bottle of scotch. He had a drink. Nothing bad happened. He didn't die right then and there or fly into a rage or go mad, so he had another, and then another. At the end of the evening, he stood up and announced to nobody in particular, "The experiment has failed. The bottle of scotch was empty." That story is classic. The struggle to control intake, modify it, cut it back, deploy 100 different drinking strategies in the effort is one of the most universal hallmarks of alcoholic behavior. We swear off hard liquor and resolve to stick to beer. We develop new rules. We'll never drink alone. We'll never drink in the morning. We'll never drink on the job. We'll only drink on weekends or after 5 o'clock. We'll coat our stomachs with milk or olive oil before we go out drinking to keep ourselves from getting too drunk. We'll have a glass of water for every glass of wine. We'll do anything, anything to show ourselves that we can, in fact, drink responsibly. In the past, if we got desperate enough, we checked ourselves into asylums, which for decades was the only formal option for the low-bottom drunk. Alcohol rehabilitation centers as we know them today are a relatively recent phenomenon. Smithers in New York is one of the best known and most highly respected rehabs in the U.S. When it opened in 1973, it was one of only a dozen or so facilities of its kind. The period prior to that is known today as the snake pit era of alcohol treatment. Alcoholics were called inebs, short for inebriates, and when hospitalized, they were usually locked up with the mentally ill. When Bill Wilson, who co-founded AA in 1935, was first hospitalized for the disease in 1933, he was admitted to the Charles B. Towns Hospital in Manhattan. According to Nan Robertson, the basic protocol there was known as purge and puke. Let the guy dry out, load him up with cathartics like belladonna, castor oil, and send him on his way. Wilson was hospitalized there 3 times without lasting results. Wilson, of course, ultimately stumbled upon the one remedy that seemed to work: talking with other alcoholics. The reasons this works are varied and elusive. Volumes could be and have been written about how and why AA succeeds, some critical, some laudatory, but one of the most essential ingredients has to do with the power of group perspective and support. Alcoholics have notoriously selective memories. No matter how sickening the hangover, how humiliating the drunken behavior, how dangerous the blind drunk drive home, we seem incapable of recalling consistently or clearly how bad things got when we drank. Drinkers talk about losing the power of choice over alcohol. At certain times when the desire to drink becomes too strong, those memories simply crumble. Alcoholics Anonymous offers a solution. The fellowship, the meetings and stories and friendships formed help alcoholics counter that flaw of selective memory. Help us remember what it was like to drink, what happened to us, and how others like us changed when they stopped. And the 12 steps of recovery outlined in AA literature and meetings help counter the buildup of suffering and humiliation, offering a way of life that has to do with honesty and self-awareness and healing, with addressing directly, rather than anesthetizing the fears and rages and feelings that compelled us to drink in the first place. So I'm going to end it there because that's the end of chapter 8. I don't see many people in chat. So maybe people are just busy, or maybe something's wrong with my live. So I'm going to check it out, and I should see you tomorrow with the next chapter on this book, Drinking, a Love Story. It's a true story. Chapter 9 is called Substitution. All right. Really quickly though, hopefully this live is on. We're on January 20. Or is it the 19th? Let me check. No, today's the 20th. January 20. This is from my Jesus Calling book by Sarah Young. Devotions for every day of the year. Approach this day with awareness of who is boss. As you make plans for the day, remember that it is I who orchestrates the events of your life. On days when things go smoothly, according to your plans, you may be unaware of my sovereign presence. On days when your plans are thwarted, be on the lookout for me. I may be doing something important in your life, something quite different from what you expected. It is essential at such times to stay in communication with me. Accepting my way is better than yours. Don't try to figure out what is happening. Simply trust me and thank me in advance for the good that will come out of it all. I know the plans I have for you, and they are good. So this book someone wrote, it's like Jesus is beckoning us to listen and to pretty much obey his word, right? So I'm going to end this live. It's been 28 minutes, nearly half an hour. And I sincerely hope that that candle. I sincerely hope. Oh, that's weird. So people, there are a few people here. Thank you, Sean B. Hi, Vicky Parton. Can't hear you very well. I have my volume all the way up, but I am away from I'm sitting back on the couch. Usually I'm in my bedroom, but my daughter's wall's on the other side, and she's literally in bed with the flu, her third day. So this will have to suffice this time, you guys. Thank you for letting me know, though, Vicky. And good evening. Hi, Moonlight Soul Path. I'm reading the chat here, and then I'll end my live. Sorry I haven't made many lives this month. We had another loss, so I've been quiet. Oh, no. Moonlight Soul Path. Another loss? Oh, goodness gracious. I don't know why a single not, maybe these, you know how they come up and they disappear, but these chat comments must have come up or disappeared when I looked at the screen and came up when I was looking at the book. So yeah. All right, well, thank you for being here, everyone. I know it's a busy day with the inauguration and people have off today, so they're probably drinking and relaxing, right? Martin Luther King Day, many businesses are closed. So I hope you enjoyed the little scene with the, the snow-covered houses on those cookie tins and the sleighs. And that's what I still have up until February 1st, and then it'll be pink and a little bit of red in here for Valentine's Day with all kinds of Valentine stuff up and around. But I do snowmen and just all of it except the Santa scenes, and Christmas trees lit and present, But you can see I was wishing for snow again this year. All right, I'm going to go. Thank you. And Substitutions Chapter 9 will be tomorrow. All right. If you guys could pray for my daughter, it'd be greatly appreciated. She really feels like crap. And my mom, I'll be calling her tomorrow. So I'll talk to you later. I hope you're all well. Prayers for everyone. Prayers still in California. They have high 100-mile-an-hour winds expected to be coming this week. and fires are actually heading down now. It's critical. It's critical in San Diego, where Max Smith is. Palm Springs. Yeah, I just cannot believe. Whoops, they're not under control. Anyway, good night. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. And please hit the like and subscribe if you're willing to. All right. Okay. Love you guys. Thank you. Bye for now.